Hi, this is Joseph Kraft. I'm the founder of thinkado.com. It's THINKAEDO.com. There's a link down below. I am here to talk to you about Socrates and the Socratic Method. So before I get into that, if you like this video, share it with your friends, like us down below. That helps me out, helps your friends out. Socrates. Socrates is known as the founder or the father of Western philosophy. There were philosophers before him. He wasn't the first, but he was the first. He's the father for a couple reasons. One is that he founded the Socratic Method, or invented or discovered the Socratic Method, which became very influential, not only in philosophy, but in education and in sciences, and really just spawned intellectualism as we know it today. He was also the teacher of Plato. Plato was probably the first philosopher in that you would learn about other than Socrates in a philosophy class. And Alfred North Whitehead said that all of Western philosophy is a series of footnotes to Plato. The greatest and most important footnoter by far was Aristotle, who was Plato's student. So from Socrates, you go Plato, Aristotle, you have probably the three most important philosophers in Western history right there. The two of them being direct descendants of Socrates. So that's why he's the father of philosophy. The oracle at Delphi at one point declared that Socrates was the wisest man in Greece. This kind of came as a shock to him because he always claimed that he didn't know anything, and you would expect a wise man to be somebody who made claims to knowledge about something. He finally decided that if he was truly the wisest man in Greece, it was because he knew that he did not know. And that was kind of an underlying theme that he carried out throughout his career as a philosopher and as a teacher in Athens. Socrates literally was in the streets and the public squares in Athens, in the market, and wherever people were, he was there dialoguing with people. He was a very public philosopher. So the Socratic Method was a method of questioning, and it was both a pedagogical method, a way to teach somebody, although Socrates himself would have said he was bringing out the knowledge that was within them. His mother was a midwife, and Socrates said that he was a midwife of ideas to bring out the ideas that were innate in people. It was also a way of finding the truth. If both parties to a conversation are genuinely searching after the truth, then the Socratic Method is a very good way for that, because it strips away what is unknown or what is unsure or what we think is sure, and it turns out is questionable. So an example of how this works Socrates would generally first ask a question that would kind of shake the foundations of somebody's beliefs and show them that they're not as certain as they thought they were. So, for example, if you were talking about the virtue of patriotism, so Socrates might say, well, what is the virtue of patriotism? Give me a definition. And the person would answer, well, the virtue of patriotism is loyalty to one's country. And that's a good definition. It might be what you would find in the dictionary. But then Socrates would ask a question such as, so if it's good to be loyal to your country, I'm an American, and so patriotism for me is loyalty to America. Then is it good for Canadians to be loyal to their country? Or we have the crisis in Ukraine right now with Russia invading the Crimea. So I could say, is it good for Russians to be loyal to their country? And you could say, well, maybe it depends on, your place of birth and your heritage, and maybe it is good for me to be loyal to my country and for Canadians and Russians to be loyal to theirs. And maybe somehow those can work together, and those can all be virtues, even though they in some ways will conflict with each other. And really then, so this kind of, I see that there's maybe some holes in my theory, but overall I think we can patch it up. It may even be more of a question of what is virtue than of what is patriotism. But then maybe Socrates comes back and says, well, are you loyal to your country when your country does bad things? Do you still, is there this blind loyalty to always come to your country's defense, to always do what is required of your country, even if normally, objectively speaking, these things are reprehensible? Well, that starts to, it's hard to say that that's a virtue. It's hard to say that it's virtuous to commit genocide, even though it's usually a country committing genocide against some minority population in the country. It's legal. It's the dominant culture in the country. That's hard to defend that as virtuous. So now you can see that loyalty to your country is really not a very good definition for the virtue of patriotism. So that idea has been shattered at this point. Only through questioning. All that Socrates, or me in this case, has done is ask questions. That's really the heart of the Socratic method, is asking questions to show that what is believed is not as certain as it was thought, and to then find out what is more certain and what should be believed. So then, as you go on, you might think, well, what is a better definition of the virtue of patriotism? And you might arrive at, rather than loyalty to country, love of country is a better definition. So if somebody loves something, if a father loves their child, then they can rebuke their child and they can punish them in ways to try to bring them up to be better than they would have been otherwise. So they don't have to have a blind loyalty. They don't have to always come to the defense. They don't have to always do whatever is asked of them by their country or by their child, because it could be better, it could be more loving to not do those things, to rebuke your country, to rebuke power. Rebuking power is actually what ended up getting Socrates in trouble. The powers that be inherently don't like people asking a lot of questions. They don't like people undermining their authority. They have their authority and it's established and they like it to stay that way. So when somebody comes and asks a bunch of questions that gets people to doubt the system, it really doesn't go over very well with them. So Socrates was eventually charged with the crime of corrupting the youth, basically making the youth question the system. He represented himself in court. He rebuked the court, essentially. He didn't really give much of a defense. It didn't go very well. They sentenced him to death. He was given opportunities to escape, and probably the powers that be actually wanted him to escape because they wanted to save face, but they really didn't want to execute a popular old man. But Socrates refused to escape, saying that he had lived under Athenian laws his entire life, and that he would not change now, that it'd be wrong of him to be inconsistent at the end of his life. And eventually he executed himself, as was the custom, by drinking hemlock poisoning. So that is the end of Socrates. His like I said earlier, his student Plato was his primary student. He went on to found the Lyceum, which was the first, what we would recognize as a university, and spawned the Western intellectual tradition and philosophy. So that's Socrates and the Socratic Method. Thank you very much for watching, and have a good spring break. I will see you next week. Thanks.